There are a lot of pros and cons to living in Idaho Falls and the surrounding areas. And if you look at my videos or other videos on YouTube or around the internet, we all kind of say the same things. Yeah, it snows a lot, it's cold, it's windy. Yeah, the people are awesome, the summers are awesome. Those are all very general things. But I want to get even more specific. I want to get to the best and the absolute worst things, in my opinion, that has to do with Idaho Falls specifically. So, you ready? Let's get started. What's up, guys? My name's Annika Wilder. I'm a local realtor here in the eastern Idaho area. If you're thinking about moving here or you have questions about Idaho Falls and the surrounding areas, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. If you want to see more videos like this, or if you have any other suggestions of videos that you want or need to see about this area, comment below, hit that subscribe button, and you won't miss a beat. Okay guys, I have a list of 5 of the worst things that I could think of about Idaho Falls, which also pertains to a little bit of eastern Idaho in general. And then I have a list of 5 things that I feel are the best things about Idaho Falls. But I also took a survey on the Life in Idaho Falls Facebook group and asked that same question: what are the best things about Idaho Falls? And this was a combination of what they said and my opinion. So first, let's get started with the number 1 worst thing that people find out when they move here, and it's that it is so dry. It's dry in the summer, it's dry in the winter. In my opinion, it's even drier in the winter than it is the summer. So if you're coming from a state like, let's just say California. California doesn't seem like it has a lot of humidity, but man, oh man, it has a lot more humidity than it does here in Idaho. And that's one of the number 1 things that people notice immediately. People from out of state will tell me, oh my gosh, Annika, I have drank so much water since I've been here. I'm so thirsty all the time. My skin is so dry, I have to go buy lotion. And this was the same thing for me. It's actually very similar. When I used to live in North Carolina, it was very humid, never needed chapstick, never needed lotion. But then I moved to Utah and I was constantly dry, and I had no idea how dry my skin was naturally when I was put into a dry environment. And so Utah and Idaho are very similar, so that's why I mentioned Utah. But Idaho is just as dry. And so you will need chapstick, you will need lotion. Some people will talk about getting tallow, like beef tallow, because they need more moisture. I like to have a humidifier in our house. I can link the humidifier that we have down below if you need that. It helps humidify the whole house. It keeps you warmer. It's not as like dry in your throat or in your hands. And the other thing, I never had bloody noses in my whole life, but then when I moved to a dry climate, I would just get them randomly. And so keep that in mind, that when you come to Idaho, whether you're visiting or moving here and you've never been here before and you're not used to a dry climate, pack up on the moisturizers. Number 2, the water here in Idaho Falls, in eastern Idaho, probably all of Idaho, is super hard. And so when you do buy a house or you rent a house, make sure you get a water softener. It will help tremendously, because you'll get hard water spots all over your house with your plumbing and your shower. If you have like a glass shower door, you'll definitely get hard water spots. And so getting a water softener not only helps you also prolong the life of your piping and your the things that you use, like showers and sinks and things, but it also makes the water feel better and there's no water spots. With that said, unless you get a whole house filter that also goes out to the sprinklers, when you put sprinklers on and you're parked next to your sprinklers, you're definitely going to get hard water spots on your car. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we have so many dang car washes out here. I'm telling you, if you've never been here, I swear we have a car wash on every single corner, probably because it's dusty and the hard water, and people just, they like their car to look clean because of the elements. And so anyway, hard water, that was number 2. Number 3, I really hate this. I don't use that word lightly. Mice and voles. If you're living out, not as much in town in Idaho Falls, we don't see as much as many voles and mice if you're like in a subdivision right around Idaho Falls. But if you're on any kind of acreage, like a half acre, or you're next to a field, you're next to farmland, if you're on acreage, which is common wherever you are. If you live on a farm, you're used to the country life, you're going to have mice. And so a lot of people will just have an outdoor cat, or they will just make sure holes are sealed up and then that they don't get in the house. But every once in a while, you will hear people, even just recently, I sold a house and it was only on half an acre next to a city park, and they did have mice come into their house before. And so once they sealed up the holes that they found they were coming in, there was no longer an issue. Keep that in mind, that mice can be a nuisance out here in Idaho Falls and the surrounding areas. Voles as well. They will dig holes in your yard and you'll have these mounds of dirt and you'll have holes all over, and they're also quite a nuisance. We have things called rock chucks. They're kind of like beavers. If you're living on acreage or living by water, those also will dig holes into your yard. So if you're a city slicker like me, that's what I was used to, is not really seeing a lot of mice in my life. I didn't grow up on a farm. I'm not used to it. I'm embracing the more of the country life, but there are mice and voles and other little critters out here. So keep that in mind if you're looking at getting some acreage. And you can totally have a mice-free house, 100%. If they can't get in, they can't get in. Just know that it is a nuisance out here, and it's one of my least favorite things that I've seen as I'm selling houses and learning that mice can be in certain houses. Number 4, one of the worst things about Idaho Falls and Eastern Idaho are some certain smells. Now, right where I'm in my office in Idaho Falls, there's no smells, no negative smells whatsoever. But if you live in certain neighborhoods by a farm, you might smell the smell of cows. And if that doesn't bother you, then that's great. But there are places that certain winds will blow certain ways and it'll start smelling like cows or manure, fertilizer, and it's not everybody's favorite. There's also dairy farms, and when they open up certain doors on the dairy farm, it smells pretty bad and pretty foul, and that could be in places like Shelley. I've heard that in some places in Iona it can have a very strong smell. And then there's also, we do have like a city dump, and every once in a while that can smell if you're in that area. So I think everywhere you live could have negative smells, but if you're not used to like agricultural land, farming, animals, the works, it can have a smell. So keep that in mind, like where you're thinking about moving to and where you want to live. If you're sensitive to smell like me and you don't like the smell of cows or fertilizer or dairy farms, then let's talk, because then we can talk about the neighborhoods that are not by those areas. Number 5, the summer can actually get kind of smoky. So we don't have a ton of wildfires right in Idaho Falls. I don't think we've had wildfires in Idaho Falls, but in the surrounding areas, Wyoming, even from like Oregon fires that we've had recently. And because it's windy, it can blow into Idaho Falls. And the first 2 summers that I've lived here, it wasn't smoky at all that I've noticed. And I've lived in California where there was literally ash on my car because the fires were so bad. But here, I don't think we've ever seen it like ash, but this summer of 2024, it was more smoky than I've noticed in the previous years. So it was like kind of like a grayish, brownish smog. I want to say that was in August or September that it felt pretty heavy from the fires that had blown over from surrounding states. So not my favorite thing, especially if you already run kind of dry and you got dry skin and a dry throat and then you got the smoke on top of that. It's not great. And don't get me wrong, summers in Idaho Falls have been my absolute favorite of all the places that I've lived. There's so many fun activities. The weather is amazing, but it can get smoky and it is not my favorite thing. Okay, now that I've talked about the worst things that I could think of about Idaho Falls and the surrounding areas, I want to share the best things about Idaho Falls. And when I took a poll on the Idaho Falls Facebook group, it was very obvious the top 2 choices. and they're pretty close in numbers, but number one was the people and the culture. I've talked about this before, so if I've exhausted it, go ahead and skip to the next one, but this one has been so important to me. The people here are super friendly. I've met people from all over the world. I've lived all over the world. I visited all over the world, and Idaho has got some really friendly people. Not 100% friendly, there's Karens everywhere, but overall, Idaho is super friendly. I'm talking about neighbors that still wave to you when you walk by. I was just going on a family walk in my neighborhood on Thanksgiving when someone was outside saying bye to their family member, and they looked at us and yelled, "Happy Thanksgiving!" We said, "Happy Thanksgiving!" Had no idea who they were. And that's just the type of mentality that's out here, just super friendly, super giving, and people actually want to help one another. If there's a lost wallet, it's turned in. There's a lost phone, it's posted on Facebook and trying to get it back to the owner, or lost animals or whatever. If there's people that are short on their bills, I've noticed posts about that of people saying, "Here, I'll Venmo you, no questions asked." And it's a really cool community of people who actually want to help and do good. Number two, which I would say is also number one, it's very, very close to number one, and it's the proximity to hunting, fishing, all the natural parks and the outdoor recreation. I mean, you're within 10-20 minutes of fishing, 30 to 40 minutes of hunting, and there's a lot of national parks around. I've mentioned this before. We've got the Grand Targhee, the Grand Tetons, Yellowstone, Jackson Hole. I mean, there's a lot around here. The natural hot springs that I absolutely love. If you've never been to Lava Hot Springs, it's a great place to check out, down a little bit, about 45 minutes to an hour south of here. There's just a lot of outdoor recreation. So if you're into being outside, that is one of the reasons why people have moved here and one of the reasons why they stay. Number three, this kind of has to do with the people and the community, but I love that you can buy things from your neighbors, from really local mom and pop shops, from businesses that are ran out of the home. You could buy brown pasture-raised eggs from your neighbor farmer. You can buy a whole cow from your neighbor farmer. You can buy homemade caramels and caramel apples, which is something that my friend does, that are so amazing that she runs out of her house. There's a local orchard in town that you can pick your own apples. There's a lot of local products that you can only find here in Idaho that I just think is super cool. I love supporting my neighbors. I love supporting small businesses. Instead of buying, apples from Walmart that you can get anywhere, you can hand pick it yourself right from the tree. And I just think that's really cool. Number four, if you're moving here or visiting here because you want to get out of the big city, one of the best things about Idaho Falls is you could be downtown, right next to, let's say, the downtown library or the river where the waterfalls are, or the Museum of Idaho, like right in the center of downtown, and just travel, let's just say 10 minutes south of downtown. And then you're already within fields and farms and mountains and agriculture, and you feel like you're in a rural landscape way different than the downtown, like hustle and bustle area. Same thing if you go west, just 5-10 minutes west of downtown. Again, it's like you're in the middle of nowhere. If you could go in any direction in 10 to 15 minutes, depending on where you are. Some places, from my office, you can drive 5 minutes down the road just south of here and feel like it's just fields and fields and just nothing around you. A couple farmhouses and just and fields, crops, and then the mountain view. And I just think that's so cool that I can be here close to the amenities. The hospital's right across the street, Walmart's right across the street. My favorite restaurants and grocery stores are 2 minutes down the road, but then 5 minutes that way, I can be in agriculture land and really feel like I'm out of the city. Number five, last but not least, this one's just kind of a silly thing, but I think you just wouldn't know until you lived here. And that it's because it's dry, which I think is one of the worst things about Idaho, being so dry, my lips and my hands are dry. But because of this dry climate, the snow is super powdery. So if you're into skiing or snowboarding, and makes for some really great snow activities. Also, it makes shoveling and snow plowing so much easier. I know someone that literally just walks out his back door with his leaf blower and blows it on his car, and all the snow blows off because the snow is so light, so fluffy because of the dry climate. So just some things that you maybe wouldn't know unless you've lived here, experienced the culture, and I thought that that might help make your decision a little bit easier. Again, my name is Annika Wilder. I am a local realtor here. If you're thinking about making the move, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me email, and I'll be happy to help. We'll see you next time. Bye.